That's fair. Makes sense.
Makes sense.
Makes sense.
All right, stream is live. Audio's good, I think. I'm going to go with audio's good anyway. Let's hit this intro music. Take 2. Welcome to Beerfield Fantasy, where the technology doesn't always work, but we find a way. I am in the shadows. I have had to go to the backup computer, which is almost as bad as having to go to the backup quarterback. I am your host at Beerfield Hop, as always, joined by Beerfield Theory.
What is going on? Cheers, Darren.
Cheers, Darren. This is yeah. Desktop died. Break out the laptop. Dan's trying to get to Blackout Friday, so this was a very much like, holy crap! Get ready, get warmed up, and get warmed up fast.
Yeah, this is the starting quarterback just really fucked up his ankle. There's 2 minutes left in the first half. He's going to the locker room. You're getting your ass in right away. Don't fuck this up.
Yeah. Yep. Don't.
And then we fumbled a little bit.
Only a little bit. And there might be some things. And there might be some things we're trying to work out as we go, but we're mostly all right, I think. I think we're good.
Yeah, we're in good shape.
YouTube screwed up, the audio might be okay. If the audio screwed up, YouTube might be okay. Something's going to work, right?
We're on like a Colt McCoy level. Like there's a pretty good chance that, that we get through this, probably with a W, but we'll see.
We'll see.
We'll see.
All right, so you missed our awesome intro because technology happened about trade deadlines. But today's show, we're going to go over a bunch of Dynasty trades that were made. Dan and Nick have been busy little commissioners, so we're going to go over a bunch of Dynasty trades that have been made in our leagues, kind of break down that, what they meant for each team, cost that was paid on either side, et cetera, really dive into those a bit. Most redraft leagues, your trade deadline should have passed already. But for Dynasty leagues, Dan and his team, no trade deadline. So in Dynasty leagues, typically not going to see a lot of collusion as it comes close to championship season.
It's a lot more flexible when you leave the trade when you don't have a trade deadline, especially as the playoffs start. I know a lot of people think trading during the playoffs, feels like a taboo, but in fact, you can get some pretty wild trades to see people try to secure a championship, and you can get some of your crazy value, and that just helps to shake up the value as you get closer and closer.
That it does. So cool. Well, without further ado, oh man, what just happened there? We're good actually. Sorry, I'm tweaking with volume levels and stuff because this is a system, my backup system, my laptop is a system we normally use when we're on the road and hotels and stuff. So it's going to be an ongoing endeavor to get this leveled and everything. But you know what helps a lot of those ongoing endeavors?
What's that?
What's fueling Beerfield?
Things that fuel Beerfield.
Things that fuel us.
What fuels you?
So I'm drinking. This is Surly's 15. So this is their yearly kind of, I guess, ode to the crazy styles that they have been traditionally known for. The 15 is what's called a Grand Cru. Grand Cru is a French inspired style that really hasn't fully taken into a true beer style yet. Resembles a lot of Belgian style Strong ales, generally ranging from a 6 to 10% range. This one is barreled aged. It's aged in Parker's Heritage heavy charred bourbon barrels for 8 months. This is per the Surly website. And then they back then they back blend it with a touch of High West rye barrel aged wild ale.
Oh,
Yeah, so there's a lot of complexity going on. This isn't really for the newbie beer drinkers. If you're trying to, to take out the different taste browse, taste profiles, because you're gonna get, your subtleness of a wild ale style, right? You're gonna get a little bit of farmhouse, skunky, that wild culture, which is probably going to be the Minneapolis culture that they got for whenever they decided to make this beer. And then the fact that it's aged in different bourbon barrels, you're going to get your traditional vanilla and chocolate and toffee and some of the darker fruits that would come out from those. So a lot of shit going on. We'll kind of talk about my thoughts on this as we get closer to, or right before we jump into the previews.
all right. I'm doing a side by side.
Okay.
So we've got. Oh wait, hold on. My camera's not down there.
Fancy.
We got two. In my right hand. Yeah, in my right hand. We have left hand's milk stout. S'mores milk stout.
Okay.
In my left hand, we have my campfire s'more stout. Or campfire s'mores porter. So we got a milk stout on one side, a campfire s'mores porter on the other side that is homebrew. So, like I did with the peanut butter chocolate, I'm going to try to go side by side with these, make some comparisons. What do I like more? What don't I like more? What would I do better? What would I not do better? So another homebrew side by side, what we're doing tonight.
Love it.
All right. Do you have these? Well, let's do injuries first, I guess. I'm only kind of ready for them.
Only kind of. Again, a 2-minute warning. Not a lot of time to prep.
Not a lot of time to prep. No time to prep with a last minute flip here. So for injuries that are impacting games, what the hell? I can't. Yeah, I don't want to support you. I have AdBlock Plus on here and it went sideways. Okay. So injuries that are impacting games, we'll go ahead and we'll hit those as we get to those games in the previews. So couple things. Denver Broncos made a couple moves.
They did.
They've extended Tim Patrick and Cortland Sutton. I think Sutton was 4 years at $60 million. Or are those the Taysom Hill numbers?
I'll pull it up.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I'm working crippled over here.
You are.
Tim Patrick, I think, was like 3 years, $32 million. How close am I?
I know it's same. I think it's same years and but different money. So Cortland Sutton was a 4-year deal worth up to $60.8 million. This is a 4-year contract extension. Mm-hmm. His contract would have ended this year. So it extends out another 4 years. $34.9 million of it is guaranteed.
Tim Patrick, 3 years, $34 million.
Yeah. So it's
so I was right.
You were. So the Tim Patrick deal came out before the Sutton deal. It's almost like 5 or 6 days prior. A lot of people, including myself, thought that this was a sign that they weren't going to re-sign Sutton. And when they did, now the sign that's being showed to us is they're probably going to go all in for next year.
Try to get a quarterback in.
So expect a big deal. Expect them to make a strong push for Rodgers, for Russell Wilson. Probably still out of Watson. Watson's probably too much of a risk for what they just did. Which also makes sense to why they let Von Miller go money-wise. You want to ensure that whatever quarterback they bring in, they have a strong complementary of receivers, running backs, and tight ends ready to go. And above average, easy above average offensive line.
Indeed. I mean, they've already got Noah Fant. You've got Albert O there. You've got Javonte Williams there. So, I mean, they're ready to go outside of the quarterback. Drew Lock's going to have a hell of a season next year. That's what I'm going for. Dynasty-wise, this doesn't change anything. Cortland Sutton got paid like they want him to be the one. You've got Jerry Jeudy there on a rookie deal. And Tim Patrick has been ultra reliable. Tim Patrick got rewarded.
He did.
For what Tim Patrick has done in the past, which is he came in, has ridden the pine at times. Every time his number's been called, he's stepped up and he has performed for that team. So he got rewarded for what he's done in the past. He did not get rewarded as a threat to Sutton or Judy necessarily, but solidifies he's gonna be the other outside guy there. So
it'll be nice if they get some efficiency to go along with volume. You hope that the pace of play and the team passing attempts go up, from a per game basis. Right now, it's you're gonna play all three in good matchups, especially Patrick for bye weeks. We'll see how next year's QB shakeup actually looks like, and we'll see if Denver is successful in prying away a Rodgers or Wilson's type.
Yeah, we'll have a full breakdown of QB needy teams and who's available and what we expect to happen as we wrap up this season. So be on the lookout for that. Only other news that comes to mind offhand, the Houston Texans cut Phillip Lindsay. He has been claimed by the Miami Dolphins. So the Miami Dolphins get a Myles Gaskin clone, essentially. So they got the market cornered on that type of running back. And the Houston Texans still have no idea what they're doing at running back. Rex Burkhead was seeing a lot of work there. So, I mean, that's still an
Phillip Lindsay has been one of the least efficient running backs. I mean, from running from pass catching, he doesn't create for himself. It's a stark difference from what he looked like in year one and a little bit in year two to where he's at right now. Obviously battled with injuries last year. He didn't get to the field he didn't get to play in the field as much, but if you're being cut for players like Rex Burkhead and David Johnson, where where they're at their at their points in their career, is probably not a good sign for you.
Well, so is Ingram though, and Ingram was efficient.
He was good. He got traded.
Yeah,
but this, I mean, obviously, that's a difference. So that's a plus for a team like Houston that they're able to get a draft pick out of a player they likely weren't going to bring back next year. So
right. So Phillip Lindsay, not the underlying numbers that that Ingram had either in this offense.
No, God, no, not even close. He was almost the exact opposite. There was no real efficiency from a runner, and he's one of the worst pass catchers from the running back position.
No run blocking efficiency whatsoever. But like you said, just didn't create for himself. Yak after contact was not good. So
shouldn't be a threat, to Gaskin, from that standpoint. But again, Malcolm Brown was able to be a pest, so we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. But yeah,
we'll see.
Not too worried about that, and don't go running out for Texans backs. One other note: Adrian Peterson cut by the Titans for Dontrell Hilliard to stay.
Well, Hilliard kind of fills in the pass catching role with McNichols hurt, and Deontay Foreman was obviously a better, clear runner at their points in their career.
Yep. So, for all of you that went out and blew your fab on Adrian Peterson, sorry.
You're wet and unhappy. Yikes.
It happens.
It happens.
Broken unhappy.
Yeah, that too.
Okay.
Broke, wet, and unhappy. Oof.
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 All right, you want to break down some of these trades? Do you have them pulled up?
I have Sleeper pulled up. I will get down to the league. And news. We will go to...
Clearly, we're prepared for this episode.
Clearly. Well, I don't remember when the trade started to go crazy. There's the JT trade. There was a few before that because you had the...
Well, here, I should be able to just see the transactions.
Yeah, what am I doing here?
Sleeper 101, view all, recent activity, filter, trades, done. Okay.
Look at you go.
So, first trade went down. No, that was the defensive one. November 11th at 9:06 a.m. So, let's set the stage in this league first off because it's pretty awesome. Yeah. There are 4 teams that are very clearly championship contenders. You've got Nick at 6-5, but the highest points scored in the league. Cap at 9-2. Myself at 10-1. All in one division. From the other division, you have Sean at 8-3. and then Keith kind of fading a little bit at 6-5. So it's a six teams make the playoffs, but there are 4 teams. Nick is 6-5, but has the worst luck out of anybody. So there are really 4 teams when you look at this league that are kind of cut above the rest, and then Jordan, also at 6-5, who is in a playoff spot, decided he was going to throw his money on the table too. So playoff teams making playoff moves, teams out of the playoffs making we're out of the playoff moves and moving some people, or that are resigning themselves to that. So the first trade went down on November, I said 11th, right?
Yeah, the 11th is the one that kind of kicked off.
Yeah, and that was between Kapranica and Keith Carver. So Keith, I'll use his real name on the show, even though I've been calling him Kyle for the last couple of weeks. So November 11th, 9:06 a.m., Ryan Kapranica and Keith Carver. That trade sent Justin Herbert over to Keith, and it netted Cap, DJ Moore, and Justin Fields.
Yeah, this one this trade got mocked a little bit. Also, to set the stage, this is a 1 QB league, half-point PPR, no premium, no crazy scoring. This is about as basic of a
straightforward as it gets.
Of a dynasty league outside of a little bit larger roster and starting roster. So this is Keith's, I believe, first trade with us in this league because he's new to this league this year. He obviously replacement. So he got some mockery for it as one should. Would you make this type of move?
Right.
To really not get a net upgrade at all. I mean, a little bit, but he's got Lamar Jackson on his team prior to this.
And then the statement of I have a plan, which was to put Justin Herbert and Lamar Jackson both right on the trade deadlock, like you're going to me, I don't know what that plan was, but it seemed more like you're going to try to flip them for more than what you got, but what you got was a young quarterback with a lot of upside and a top 15, top 10 Dynasty wide receiver in DJ Moore.
Yeah.
So, you gave up a lot to get a piece that you didn't need that you're going to have trouble flipping in a single quarterback league, I think, for anything of value. So that's kind of why that trade got bumped on a little bit. For Cap going the other way, he's a Bears homer. I don't know from his roster.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, it's Bears homer.
I don't know from his roster. I'll keep the trades up if you want to look at rosters. Does getting Fields make sense for him?
Let me pull up Ryan's team here. Really don't like using this fucking. There we go. I mean, he's got Brady. Yeah, okay, it does make sense. He's got Brady's his only quarterback as of what I can see from a quick glance. Getting Fields, obviously, giving away Herbert, being able to get a wide receiver 1/2 and more, and then to get a quarterback with a lot of upside. Brady, no one knows how much longer he has, but Brady's always been telling us he'll be playing till 45, and he's 43 right now.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 more seasons if all goes well.
Yeah.
And then by that point, Justin Fields, there's just been 2 more draft picks or 2 more rookie drafts to go through, plus whatever development Justin Fields goes through.
Yep. So I like that trade for Cap. He got great value on that. DJ Moore is a piece that helps him right now as he drives towards the playoffs, and he got some insulation behind Tom Brady. For Keith, we mocked it a little bit, but in all seriousness, it's just not a trade for a team that is also in contention that made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, it just didn't make a whole lot of sense. But
Cap,
let's see.
Cap making that move kind of puts the pressure on some other people that are involved to make a move. So then there's a trade between Nick and Dan, where Nick traded Rashad Bateman, single tight end, no premium, for TJ Hawkinson in a second. So Dan gets a guy, goes out and is a rebuilding team, goes out and gets a young guy that he really likes, and some draft capital. Or no, the
I traded away
pick
some of
went
the
the
draft
other way.
capital that I've accumulated through
Well,
trades.
and that's why draft capital though is currency, right? Because you go
Yep.
out and get a receiver that you really like, that you really believe in long term for your rebuilding team, and receivers have a shelf life. Nick gets what should be. We talked about tight ends and how crappy they are. What should be a premium tier tight end an upper tier tight end for the stretch run, which is kind of a good way to differentiate yourself. So, I mean, you can already kind of see, you can see at least with this trade how it makes sense for both teams when you're looking at working dynasty deals. You know, you got a rebuilding team that went out and got a young talent that has flashed a little bit, and a team in the playoff push that went out and got a piece that can help separate them from some of their competition.
Yeah, it's just funny because there's another trade that he made a little bit afterwards that netted him Travis Kelce. This just gives Knicks had the strongest roster since year 2. Very good drafting. He got some luck and unlucky with some trades, and just been horrible luck in terms of trying to win a championship. He hasn't made it to the actual championship yet. But if you look at Knicks roster, it's starting to age out a little bit. The running backs that he's been riding on have been 2017, 18. We're starting to kind of see him wanting to get younger. When you add in Hawkinson to where his side and groove is now, it gives him the tight end of the future. And then for me, it allows me to, to start my rebuild with a really good, strong receiving core, also with tight ends that can kind of build with it. Like I could compete next year, but it's all about a we'll see. So
sure. All right. Next trade was then Kapronica again, who, keep in mind, they kicked this whole thing off. Nick goes and he makes a move to upgrade his receiver core, and then Nick makes a move to upgrade his tight end core. So Cat makes another move with Ian, acquiring Tyler Lockett from Marlon Mack and a first. So
I forgot about this trade.
I forgot about this trade too because it didn't make a lot of waves, but Lockett's a very nice floor piece, and he got a second receiver to try to upgrade his receiving core, which, that's something that he obviously has been viewing as viewed as a weakness for him. Ian gets Marlon Mack, who should sign someplace next year and potentially be relevant, so he gets a high upside lottery pick and a 2022 first, which is also a high upside lottery pick. It's a good return for Tyler Lockett, I think. He's a guy that, is a solid piece, but not a super sexy piece. It's a good move for Cap to continue to solidify that receiving floor that receiving core with a little bit of floor. But it's good for Ian too because he got a first round pick and a running back that will enter his second contract, but that if he hits, lands in a good spot, produces again, is a trade chip as he continues to try to rebuild.
Yeah, and Ryan went into this season not thinking he was going to compete. Ryan felt like, yes, there is a shot, but probably not going to be there. Him and I made a trade before the season started where I acquired Cortland Sutton and I put my team into a position where I felt like I could compete this year. That obviously didn't work out. Ryan obviously went into the direction I thought I was going to go and vice versa. So now Ryan is kind of itching his way back to becoming more of a threat as the postseason comes along. By being able to acquire DJ Moore and Tyler Lockett helps to solidify that receiving room for this potential postseason run.
Yep. So that's the 13th. Fast forward a week. You have another trade between Nick and our new guy, Austin.
Yeah, this is a big one. I think what truly kicked it all off.
Yep. So Nick goes out and trades. He gets Travis Kelce and Chris Carson. Gives up Noah Fant, Brian Edwards, a 2022 first, and a 2023 second. So in hindsight, this is before Carson was announced on season-ending IR.
That's right. Oh boy, that's right.
So that's a throwaway. Because
yeah, that's rough.
You don't know what's going to happen. Carson's a back that's getting up there in age too, so I mean, you're year to year with him. Kelce, though, after already acquiring Hawkinson, seems like the rich get richer here. Now, he does get easily the tight end one for the playoff push. Kelce is 31, so you don't know how much longer you're going to be able to ride that one out. But we have seen some of these better tight ends play 3 or 4 years. So to me, this kind of negates the Hawkinson trade a little bit. And I think he might have been trying to get some running back insurance here with Carson, but I mean, like things do with Nick, blows up in his face with Carson going on IR, and Kelsey's kind of a redundant piece for him, I think.
Yeah, I mean, so we'll put this into context. With Austin took over this team from a guy who decided to be inconsistent with starting his lineups through multiple reminders.
Never made a trade.
He's never traded ever, and he's been in this league since the beginning. So this was a breath of fresh air for now players who have never felt like they were acquirable, now acquired. I don't love this. Like, even before Carson's injury, I didn't really like this trade because when you move on, like how much I know there's a bigger difference between Kelsey and Hawk. It's still not a premium league. You're still giving up premium capital. And I'm not trying to put my bias for Brian Edwards on display here, but he could have easily pieced together some tight end production between Fant, who we moved away for Kelsey, Hawkinson. He still has Zach Ertz, I believe, too, which he traded a first for a couple years ago. It's not that he's making bad trades. He's trying to improve his roster wherever he can. This one just didn't quite hit the mark given how much he gave up.
Yep. On the flip side of this, Austin did a really good job with this one. I had an offer out for Kelsey. It was not this high.
I mean, Nick's pretty good. I mean, between the three of us, we're all pretty fair for our, our initial offers, which we'll now get to here in a little bit.
I think mine was
next trade we did.
I think mine was a first, a third, and Dalton Schultz. So
yeah,
it was not off base value wise. It was, as always, to serve as a starting point, but you got to come in serious. So I want to say mine was either a first and a third in Dalton Schultz or a first and a second in Dalton Schultz to rotate it for a 31-year-old tight end in a non-premium league. So Austin did good in this one. He got Noah Fant, who's a young tight end that should be in a good offense for the next couple of years. And then, like you said, Brian Edwards. Edwards is one of these high-talented wide receiver guys who hasn't really flashed given the scheme that he's in. And the way that he has flashed. He just hasn't really found consistency given the scheme that he's in. But, he could be he's in his second year. He could be a good third or fourth year breakout guy. It's another high upside piece that if he hits, you're more than happy with. I mean, it's a high upside lottery ticket, which is a rebuilding team. That's what you're looking for with these players. Younger guys that haven't broken out yet. There's another one of those that changed hands here in a minute. So younger guys that haven't broken out yet, younger talent that has flashed a bit, and I think he did good, and he got draft capital. He got a 2022 first, 2023 second, so starting to build some of that draft capital for next year as he has a major rebuild in front of him.
Yeah, it's a good start for what may be a couple-year project.
Yep. All right. So after that, 2 days later, Sean, who's a competing team, comes in and gets A.J. Brown and a 2023 second for Josh Jacobs and Jalen Waddle.
This trade made no sense to me. I understand, and from Keith's perspective, so Keith told me him and I had been in conversations for trades. I thought Keith was going to be trying a team that wants to compete. Again, to set the stage, each division winner makes the playoffs, and there's 4 wild card based on record with points when points forward as the tiebreaker for that point. So I thought Keith, who had just lost Derrick Henry, thought maybe he was still going to try to compete with Sean to take our division. If you're trying to rebuild, I get trading for Waddle.
Yeah.
There's no point to trade for Jacobs.
There's no point to trade away.
And then to give away A.J. Brown, who is a top 5 wide receiver in Dynasty.
Yeah, that's what it is for me. You didn't.
In a second, Rob.
Yeah. So what I see here is another trade that didn't, like you said, it didn't make a lot of sense. Like, he could be competing, he could be rebuilding, but what you don't want to do is get yourself caught in the middle. Josh Jacobs is very much a I'm caught in the middle pick to me.
It has not worked out for him. You can blame the Raiders, but Jacobs has been battling with durability concerns, and he's not being utilized in the way that helps to highlight what we thought was his best skill set coming out of college. And that's the pass catcher.
Yeah, and we like Waddle too. We just don't.
We do.
Yeah, I just don't like Waddle more than I like A.J. Brown. Waddle's getting all the volume that A.J. Brown is not, but A.J. Brown is a monster here. And, maybe this is one of those trades that I think we can assess now, and then maybe looking back on it, it's actually the better, Waddle's the better of the two. Jacobs is a throwaway piece. That 2023 second maybe doesn't amount to anything, just trying to give the benefit of the doubt here. But, like you said, Keith is somebody that could compete for that division. Sean is not a bulletproof team. So
he's a glass cannon right now.
And Keith is also right there in contention with the wild card teams, right? Cap's going to be one of them, or I will be one of them. That's almost a guarantee. Whoever doesn't win our division will be one of them. And then the other three are pretty well up for grabs, So based on record. So you very easily could try to drive at the playoffs, and maybe that's what this angle is a little bit, but I can't figure it out, and I don't know. As far as overall return, Sean does good to get a 2023 second that he can use as bait a little bit, because he is a competing team, so he gets draft capital, which is currency, or recoup some draft capital that he traded away. So
it's just Brown is the upside in which you want to see Waddle. Brown is also 30 pounds heavier than Waddle, and has a route tree and is a part of a scheme that allows him to work deep. We like Waddle. We like the upside. We like the fact that he's getting a lot of volume. As A-Dot says otherwise, and we need to be able to see that he can be utilized as more of a downfield threat to maximize his ceiling. It's got good floor. We'll see about the ceiling, and the fact that Miami doesn't seem sold on Tua. Could also see a quarterback change alongside trying to figure out what Waddle's true identity is moving forward. So this is probably my least of all the trades that I've liked.
Yep. So the next two trades are both involving me. They were made about an hour apart from each other, and I want to and you got to look at these. These are two trades that I think have to be looked at almost together because of what I was trying to do with this. So the first trade is I sent Javonte Williams out for Leonard Fournette and Dan Arnold. So Nick making the move at tight end made me feel like I needed to upgrade at tight end. It has consistently been my weakest spot in this league. I have rotated the likes of Gerald Everett through that spot. We've got Dalton Schultz plugged in there right now. Will Dissly has been there in the past. Jimmy Graham has been there in the past. I have not had a solid tight end in this league. Dan Arnold is a guy that we had just talked about that was getting volume and a decent floor from Jacksonville, and I have a ton of upside in other areas of this roster to where I just need my tight end to not kill me. So Dan Arnold's a guy I went out to get. Is kind of a guy I can rotate in and out based on matchup or use as an insulation piece in conjunction with Dalton Schultz. Keep in mind this is also before Cooper's injury and CeeDee Lamb gets concussed, and where I'm a little afraid of what Dalton Schultz is actually going to be going forward too. So went out and get another guy that can give me some floor, and then Leonard Fournette is a pickup. It was the RB13 at the time. I have DeAndre Swift, I have Damian Harris, I have Myles Gaskin, I have Melvin Gordon. I need a clear 2, and then some guys I can rotate in the flex spot. And I really felt like I needed a clear running back 2 in the short term. And getting Leonard Fournette to me was that clarifying piece of this is a guy that can be my clear running back 2 as long as he doesn't get hurt. The flip side of that is I had to give up Javonte Williams. So I had to give up youth at running back in a group that is DeAndre Swift and not a lot of surefire things. But, I felt like that was the easiest way to do it while also trying to preserve draft capital going into the next 2 years. Good running backs have short shelf lives.
Yeah.
I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this when it came
So
across.
I was a bit torn. Like, I see this trade, and at this point, there's so many trades moving through that I haven't really been able to assess the moves that have been made. I don't dislike this move. I understand why you made it, because you need a surefire running back production more so than what you've been getting from Javonte
or Damian Harris for that matter.
Yeah, and it's what's tough about it is it's not like it's kind of selling his stock right before there's a good chance that it booms.
Yeah.
Or a return that I thought you could have gotten more out of.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't dislike Fournette. I just it felt like if I'm going to move Javonte Williams, where I know where his value is going to greatly increase moving into next year,
Try to get a little more.
I want to be able to get a little more certainty with it. Fournette has a certainty, but they still like Ronald Jones there. They still play Gio there.
It's a short-term option.
It's a short-term option, and then it made this trade made a little more sense with when you and I, first got involved, and then we made our trade right after, about an hour afterwards. And that kind of helped to truly kind of put everything together.
And that was exactly why I offered you that immediately after, because I'd been eyeballing Gibson a little bit. That was immediately why after that I was like, all right, I just gave up my running back future. Now let's go try to get a guy that can help keep me competitive the next 2 or 3 years. And I don't disagree with what you said on being able to get more out of Williams. That's why part of making that deal happen was I wanted to make sure I held on to draft capital in one of the next 2 drafts,
which is important because I mean, again, it's all about currency. It's all about where I value my team now, and then how can I build, or how can I set myself up now to make sure that I'm not fucked in the future if things don't go the way that I want it to. Because as you've seen in most leagues, it only takes a few injuries to really, curtail someone's season. And you have to be able to reassess by not giving up, but also not trying to give up too much.
Yep. All right. And then flip it over when I said we need to look at this on the other side. Trading you for Aaron Rodgers and Antonio Gibson, I sent over Laviska Shenault, Zach Wilson, 2022 first and a 2023 second. So what that did, I kept my second rounder for next year. I kept my first rounder for 2023. I gave you 2 what I view is guys that still have upside that maybe haven't gotten off the snide a bit. High upside, low floor lottery tickets, essentially, to go along with draft capital to get a slight upgrade at quarterback. My quarterback one right now is Matthew Stafford. So slight upgrade at quarterback. If anything, insurance there to where I can play matchups a bit. And then Antonio Gibson, which replaced some of the youth that I lost in, and Javonte Williams and gave up for Fournette. Gibson gives me a running back 2 going forward that I would not have had, with just Fournette. So kind of the combination of Fournette and Gibson replacing Javonte Williams, I think was good for me. Shenault and Wilson were insignificant pieces on my roster that, they're like Williams. It was kind of a sell low on them, but there's no guarantee that, especially in single QB, that value is going to get any higher on either guy. But for Dan, who's rebuilding, it is, if they do, then you have pieces. They're upside. Yeah, they're not throwaways.
And for me, I mean, I viewed Zach Wilson. So again, the single QB, I have Jalen Hurts and Kirk Cousins on my roster at this point. Move away Rodgers, get Zach Wilson in return. My quarterback situation feels like it's a bit up in the air. We can talk about how great Hurts has been playing, but Philadelphia has yet to truly commit to him. We'll know far more at the end of the season. Kirk Cousins is a ticking time bomb in Minnesota. Regardless of how well he's played, it's been his role. Wilson is kind of like, well, we'll see. Like maybe he's Josh Rosen, Sam Darnold. Maybe he turns it around and we get a little more of a Josh Allen trajectory for Zach Wilson. I'm not really hurt by this. Shenault, I've always been a big fan of. While there's definitely red flags in his case.
And I knew that.
And he at least he gets to grow with arguably the best QB prospect of all time, at least in the last 10 years. And hopefully Jacksonville's coaching situation returns in his favor. Again, it's an upside piece for a team that I have a lot of receiving depth. So I have a lot of moves I could make if I want to try to compete next year, but also not trying to, curtail me into one direction. The draft picks were what really, threw the top. I like Gibson. I'm a little concerned from a durability standpoint if he can't hold up. This is a guy that never fully was asked to take on a full running back load. He's got the size, he's got the athleticism, he's got the pass catching profile and the running profile that we like. But can he actually hold up to being asked to do that? That's been my concern. So I don't view this as me getting out for low, but getting out for probably equal value that helps you in the long term. This is going to help me in the long term. And this takes away points on a team that I don't want to score a lot of points this year. So it kind of fits where I'm going to.
Yep. And so, at the end of all of that, it's just one of those things that it worked out for both of us. And, really the combination of the two moves I made, I feel good about it. I got out of that for giving up a first this year and a second next year. And I added Leonard Fournette, Dan Arnold, Aaron Rodgers, and Antonio Gibson. And a couple of players that would not have cracked my lineup. So
I also had Dak Prescott on my roster at this time. Spoiler, I don't have him on my roster anymore. So I entered a single QB season with Dak, Rodgers, Hurts, and Cousins. Mm-hmm. So it was important to me to truly blow up the quarterback spot because I had too much value there that I needed to start moving people away. I have too many, working pieces, and I need to start trying to accumulate, other currency in return.
And the other part of that too, that we got to talk about is why was I okay with moving Visca, a high upside receiver piece who was basically riding the back end of my bench? That one's pretty simple. I've done a hell of a job drafting wide receivers. So my wide receiver core is Cooper Kupp, Deebo Samuel, Terry McLaurin sitting at the top of that thing.
Yeah.
So
Chenault's not going to give you, he's not going to give you the production that Gibson is going to give you this year. Mm-hmm. And then what Rodgers could potentially give you if you play him over Stafford. So.
And I am. So now. And Stafford was on a bye. Yeah, the next one.
Second big. Well, we'll see. These next two trades are fucking monsters. So
this is the one that made us go, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Jordan receives Jamar Chase and gives up a 2022 first, 2023 first, 2024 first, 2022 and 2023 second rounders to Drew, who is in a perpetual rebuild. This is insane. And we all kind of raised our eyebrows and said, what the hell? And then we went and looked at Jordan's roster and we realized something about Jordan. I don't think Jordan trusts himself to draft.
And he doesn't value picks that highly. It's probably a combination of both.
Right. So when you look up and down his roster, there is almost nobody there that has been drafted in. Now, you also took away pretty much any currency you have to trade for anyone for the next 2 years. Or at least next year, for sure. Unless you move some pieces. And you acquire Jamar Chase, who you could make an argument for as the Dynasty wide receiver one. It's between him and Jefferson.
Yeah.
But you acquire Jamar Chase, so he does get younger at receiver, gets a very proven commodity, Jordan does. Gets, a guy that's going to be a staple in his roster for a bit, that you don't even have to worry about being a lottery ticket or not. But he gave up a lot for this to Drew because, in the first and second round, or the first rounds of the next 3 years, right? Who's to say you're not going to stumble on two guys that make a giant difference in your roster out of those three? Maybe not Jamar Chase level, but two guys that make a giant difference in your roster and two guys that really help you out in the second round. So the problem is that Jordan's going to end up in a situation, I think, where he's starting to age out a little bit. And Drew is really set up to make whatever moves he wants to make and do whatever he wants to do in his rebuild.
Yeah. So I posted this trade on Twitter just to kind of get people's response. It's the biggest trade I've seen involving one player and then draft picks. Obviously, normal responses said I would take the draft picks. One guy responded, I would take Chase. And basically his argument is that you're getting a proven commodity. And if I need to get the draft picks back, I can get the draft picks via trade. My counter response to him is that, well, you're absolutely right. You can definitely go back and acquire picks throughout the years. You're likely never going to get back in return what you just gave up. And you're basically going to be stuck in one spot. Jordan's got a great roster, right? He's got Eckler, McCaffrey, and Mixon as a staple running back core, strong running back core that at any moment could start to see him age out. Receiving core to go along with Chase is Thielen, Gallup. He's got Tyreek Hill. He's got a great roster, right? He's got a good starting core. The problem when you start to move all your currency away is that you don't have depth. And Dynasty, if you can't survive injuries, you're probably not going to compete.
Yeah.
And you have to pray, like what the Rams are right now in real life, that you don't lose your key players because you don't have depth to fill in the massive loss that just occurred. It's quarterback spots all out of whack. you don't have capital or when you don't have currency to move that can get you a young QB or a trusted QB because he's got Heineke, Matt Ryan, and Carson Wentz. Again, it throws you into a wrench because while it may not be the biggest deal, in single QB leagues, there might be times where had he traded for a quarterback that can give him higher ceiling, he may miss out on that 10 to 15 points that's gone, and that may cost him his playoff spot, or that may cost him a victory in the playoffs. So it's a bold move. It's not one I would make. That's just far too much currency. It's not about the draft picks and the players that you get for them. It's about what they equivalent to in terms of actual currency. Draft picks never lose value. They can only increase.
Yep.
And it starts to increase in value as you get closer to the actual draft for that year. So I love Jamar Chase. Drew hated making this trade, but it's almost a no-brainer for Drew, who's in a rebuild.
Yeah, I agree. It's almost a no-brainer. I mean, the only way it's not is that Chase is a guy that is still gonna, even if you're in a full rebuild right now, Chase is a guy that's still going to contribute as you near a competitive window in 2 to 3 years. The shelf life on receivers when they come into the league, I mean, you're anywhere from 5 to 8 years before they start to fall off. So, I mean, he still would have had, 3 to, but like I said, with the draft capital that he got, you might be able to replace him. I don't know. I don't know what.
I mean, you're going to get. You may not replace Chase one for what pick is what pick.
You're going to get more.
But you're likely going to have pieces in place that's going to give you far more points than what Chase would ever score.
Yeah.
From a single time, and this trade will depend on how Drew uses these draft picks. The same thing with the NFL.
He's got to draft well.
When we look at big draft moves up for teams, it's what players were accumulated, from those picks. The Rams and the picks they got for trading with Washington so they can get RG3. What Washington got when they traded down with the Rams so the Rams could get Jared Goff, or however all that played out. It's about the players you get in return and how you utilize those picks will probably help determine on who wins this quote unquote trade.
Yep. All right. The next trade was another blockbuster. Sean receiving Jonathan Taylor. Yanni receives Devonta Smith, 2 first-rounders, both this year.
3 first rounds total.
Yeah, 3 total and 1 for next year. The 3 first-rounders, 2 for this year. 1 figures to be low, 1 figures to be relatively high. And 1 for next year, which figures to be probably pretty low.
Yanni's a rebuilding team. Sean obviously competing, gets the running back, the Dynasty running back 1 and in single QB. Likely the Dynasty 101 pick in Jonathan Taylor. Sean didn't want to make this trade for the longest time because he didn't want to give up the amount of currency he was going to take. And of course, this is in the middle of Jonathan Taylor going off for 5 touchdowns. So Yanni was put in a position where
as it happened, as Taylor was going off.
Yanni, who is also who's been in this rebuild since he took this team over, has finally kind of accumulated the draft picks that he needs to help truly, take this team back to where he wants it to be. So obviously losing Taylor is tough, but if you're not competing for the next year or two, there's no need to ever hold on
your
to
running back currencies because running backs we talk about all the time. Running backs are good for 1 contract. You're going to get 4 years guaranteed, and Taylor's already in his 2nd.
And you got to be praying that they get re-signed. And we've seen a lot of running backs who fall off the face of the earth. Taylor, while it's got the size, he has taken a shit ton of punishment, but he's going to give Sean his running back core, great throughout the time that he has them. It's how you view running backs will likely how you view this trade.
Yeah.
It's how you view running backs for Dynasty.
Yep. And the way that I view them is this. They're here for a good time, not for a long time. And if you're rebuilding, like you just said, Dan, I completely agree with that take. You're better off moving them if you're not going to be competitive in 2 years or so. You're better off moving them for capital. He's in his 2nd year. So you get 2 years of Jonathan Taylor. Yanni's not going to be able to. Yanni is going to be just entering a window in 2 years. Could Jonathan Taylor help? Yeah, absolutely, it could be. He's only going to be 24 when that comes up, so he's going to get 1 more deal and 1 more crack someplace if he keeps this performance up. But you know what? When you're a team with not a lot up and down the roster, you're better off going for volume of bodies there than you are for one guy. Because one guy he ain't going off for 51 every week, you know?
Oh, God, no.
All right.
All right, 2 more left.
2 more left. Yanni and Drew then make a trade where Yanni gets Jerry Jeudy and Drew a first and a third. I like this a little less, I think, than I did the last move. Getting Devonta Smith on top of draft capital is awesome. You have a future potential wide receiver 1, 2 at worst, and draft capital. But then what you did is you gave up some of that draft capital for a guy like Jerry Jeudy. Well, you just had Cortland Sutton and Tim Patrick signed around him, and Jeudy hasn't shown the ability to have a ceiling yet. He's shown good floor, but I wouldn't value Jeudy any differently than, Christian Kirk right now, I don't think. Maybe a little higher, but I think he would have been better off holding on to that currency. I don't get this trade.
I mean, it's tough to want to give up. I mean, again, we know that Yanni John, his actual name, is very high in Jeudy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's all of the Alabama mold, right?
Sure.
Skinny, he's fast, and he's an elite route runner, and he's young, right? He's got all the boxes you want to hit. Except Denver doesn't have their quarterback situation figured out. We can allude to what we think they're going to do based on some moves they've made. And Devonta Smith is in the same boat, but the fact that Yanni was able to get first-round draft picks out of that JT deal, how Smith performs may not actually matter. Giving up said draft capital while you're trying to retool/rebuild, Jeudy needs to be far better in this case, and I don't see the ceiling is not the same. It's not high enough, and their floors are relatively the same if you compare Jeudy and Smith.
Right.
We don't know the quarterback situations. We don't know how this is going to play out. Now, in Yanni's case, he's got great depth at receiver, so he's fine there.
Yeah, he's good there. He's took care of a position, and now he doesn't have to draft it, which is the other side of this argument.
God, his running backs, Jesus,
bad.
He's got Kelvin Ridley too. No, Ridley. No, he's got
Metcalf,
he's got Pittman, and now he's adding Smith and Jeudy, and you can play up to 4 wide receivers in this league so far. So,
what's he got?
He's got some moves he can definitely. He's got some depth he can mess around with on top of the capital.
Have a deep running back class coming this year, so maybe that's why. I don't know.
We'll see.
Maybe it's see who bursts and then try to flip some. Even if you're doing what he's doing and stacking capital at one position, you can flip some of those receivers later.
Oh, easily, yeah.
I don't hate it. It's not egregious. It's not as bad as some of the others I thought. It's just it seems a little tilted one way.
It's a bit higher pay up.
It's a little bit of a higher pay up, but you know what? Yeah. We say it all the time too. If you like your guy, go get him, and that's what he did. So good on him.
Yep. No,
and then
that's true.
The last trade, you received Jordan Howard and Deontay Johnson.
I don't care about Deontay Johnson, and then the throwaway piece is Jordan Howard.
Dak Prescott and Tony Pollard. Throwaway piece is Jordan Howard. So you go out and get a wide receiver that is breaking out. He's watching him. So I got to watch Deontay Johnson closely for the first time last night. We watch Red Zone during the day, so it's a little hard to really get a beat on players. But when you watch the Sunday night games and the Monday night games and the Thursday night games, you start to get a little more of a beat for some of these guys and how they progressed. Deontay Johnson looks like a guy that's really progressed from year to year. His hands appeared to be better. He was running more deep routes, not just shallow stuff over the middle. He was really starting to show some of the upside I think Pittsburgh saw in him and really starting to grow and develop it into the player that I think that they had hoped he would be. He's put a lot of work into helping shore up his hands, and you know what? It showed. It looked a lot better. Dak Prescott, again, single quarterback league. You have Jalen Hurts. That was a bonus for you. Shipping off Tony Pollard, again, a little bit of a bonus for you. This is one I look at and say, maybe you could have gotten an extra sweetener on top, but it's not bad at all. I mean,
I was okay moving Prescott and Pollard.
Yeah,
for Johnson.
For
The initial talk was Prescott for Johnson. Sean has decent receiving, even though he just moved away to Devonta Smith to get JT in return. Sean was a little. He said to me he's a little bit out of his comfort zone, being this aggressive in season, and I probably kind of helped to push him in this direction by countlessly telling him that you can game stack with the Cowboys, which is a fantastic thing to do. We need to get rid of this
With Pollard
this
and
mantra
Zeke?
that game stacking
Yeah.
is bad.
Because he's got Zeke,
But
doesn't he?
He's got Zeke. He's got
So you
CeeDee
just-
Lamb. Now he gets to pair Pollard up behind
Should
Zeke.
I trade him Dalton Schultz?
You could try. I mean, he's got Kittle, so he probably won't do that. But
Just for fun,
This-
so he
this-
can
this
start the
gives
entire
me-
Cowboys offense?
he has pretty much the entire outside of Cooper and Gallup. This also then now gives me just insane wide receiver core to continue to build with, and then gives me the flexibility to, to make moves without ruining my depth. So love this deal for me. Sean gets a quarterback. He gets an upgrade, and he gets a true kind of 1 and 2 between Prescott and Burrow, which just should ensure Sean his playoff spot as the winner of our division, with me and Keith, who were the only ones truly competing with him, who could have both bowed out of trying to win this year. So this just gives Sean the extra on top to kind of hopefully give him his repeat from last year, because he won last year.
And then, the other league, we're just going to go ahead
No, we can just keep talking.
and
Or you can move to previews if you want to talk about.
No, I was just
Kamara
gonna
trade.
throw out the best ball trade, the two best ball trades, real quick, because I'm trying to throw myself into full rebuild over in that best ball league. So shipped off Kamara for Marquise Brown, a 2022 first and a 2023 third there.
Hold on, best ball doesn't pop up on my desktop.
No, that's okay. I got it.
Yeah,
It was Brown, a first and a third for Kamara. Hollywood.
see, I like this. I like this move for you because you're getting you're getting the capital in return. Marquise
Brown is a best ball piece too.
He's a good basketball piece. He's also, if Baltimore's moving towards more of a balance, slightly pass heavy offense, is a win for you, Sean. Who's, I think he's competing. He is competing.
He is.
Gives him another running back that he can feel confident in, even though Kamara hasn't played in like a month. So
I can give you some giant weeks though, and it's best
He
ball,
could.
and that's what you're playing it for in best ball, is just throw the most upside onto your roster as you can.
yep, and see what happens.
Yep. The other trade in that was less significant. I got rid of Jacobs for a second and some defensive trades. So
Yep.
Yeah, I did want to talk about the Kamara trade though briefly there.
No, of course.
So if you don't take away anything from that rambling, take away this. In Dynasty leagues, we just treated that like the MLB trade deadline.
It was and we're not even, and there is no deadline in that weekend. With that day, it's so much fun.
Well, it was very, very much, one move happened to throw your dick on the table, and then everybody that was competing felt the need to make moves. And that was
It
cool.
was,
It was cool to
good.
see, and it was cool that's how that went. That tells you a couple things. One, the fact that was able to happen tells you about the knowledge in that league. The people that know what they're doing, that know what they want to do, and are very aware of where their team is and what they need to do to build and jumpstart that team. And it really set a division in that league for these are the teams that are competing and these are the teams that are rebuilding. So that was really cool. But just know where your team is and do what you need to do to position that team well. If you're competing, lay it out there and go get what you need to do to try to win. If you're not competing, get rid of the pieces that are expendable, be it aging wide receivers over the age of 27, 28 that are still productive pieces, running backs that are in their second contract or nearing the end of their first contract, extra quarterbacks and single QB. Get rid of some of those expendable pieces and convert them into currency, which is your draft capital, or go get younger. Do what you need to do to build on that team. Know where you're at, and make it happen. Work it out. Talk to people and make it happen.
Exactly.
And you know what? You can find value. Some of you may listen to those and feel like they're lopsided or they're off, but if you have a plan with what you're doing, unless it's I'm going to trade for a quarterback and single QB and then immediately put that quarterback back on the trade block. And maybe I'm just too dense to know what that plan is. Maybe it's something way smarter than I could ever comprehend.
Probably.
It's
a very 40 chess move.
Yeah. Yeah. So hopefully that helps you with player evaluation. If you're newer to Dynasty, hopefully that helps you a little bit with draft pick evaluation. Actually, I want to talk about that real quick. Draft pick evaluation, because I didn't really dive into that. When you're evaluating draft picks as a rebuilding team, the size of your league is mostly the size of your league and the number of usable pieces likely to be in a draft is what happens. If our league is the baseline for most leagues, your usable pieces in any given draft are typically going to run out towards the middle of the second round. That's when you're going to start to feel not great about what you're picking. So your first and second round picks have a lot more value than your third and fourth round picks. Know who you're trading with is drafting too. Because the second round pick from a team that is likely to finish near the back of the division holds a lot more weight than a second round pick from somebody that's likely to be in the championship round. So, and then try to know at least the upcoming draft class in general. You don't have to know players. You don't have to know specifics. You don't have to know who you like and who you don't like, but try to get a feel for how deep that is, because that's really going to help you determine how you evaluate draft picks as a rebuilding team, and where that demarc point is from this draft pick is super valuable and something I want to this draft pick is not something I want. If you're beyond the point where it's super valuable, run out and try to get 2023 picks. Get 2023 first and second rounders and, hold them for future currency. And for what is that draft class going to be? They're worth a little less than your current year's picks just because of immediacy. But if you're a rebuilding team and 2 years off, there's nothing wrong with getting picks in those years that you're still going to be rebuilding versus the current year.
Exactly.
Beer review and let's preview.
Yes.
Beer review.
All right, Dan, what do you got?
All right. So again, drinking Shirley 15. This is a Grand Cru, which is a kind of experimental new age style that takes Belgian strong ales and kind of throws it on their head. Again, a very complex flavor. Pour wise, you can tell color gives you that truly kind of a caramel tone. You don't get the thickness that you would get from a traditional porter or beers aged in these bourbon barrels, but this is a true strong ale style. The color, the true toffee, the true caramel. You get a lot of the straw and hay style wild ales where it's complex in its flavors from its dark fruits from the barrel from it being aged in bourbon barrels to subtleness and the sweetness from the vanilla and subtle toffee. I don't get a lot of chocolate on it. The profile says I'm supposed to. I don't really pick that up. I do get the vanilla and the slight toffee on the back end as it's kind of settling in my mouth after I've swallowed. It drinks more of a strong ale with kind of the barrel aged kind of things that you would pick out when a beer is being aged in bourbon barrels. It's good. It's different from what they described, but I think it's good. You're going to get different people who's going to pick up different things when you have this much going on. You're going to just end up picking up different things and other people may not.
All right, I'm doing side-by-side comparisons. So in my right hand, up here, I've got 4 hands S'mores Milk Stout, and in my left hand, I've got my Smoked S'mores Porter. So I'm going to break this down based on color. First off, if I hold them up to the light, they're very similar color-wise. The Stout is actually a little bit lighter, a bit more translucent. It's a little bit closer to brown ale in color. So I'd say almost a little light for the style. Porter is going to be a little darker, a little more red and amber in color than it is translucency. Not to be biased as I go through this, I'm trying to be unbiased, but I think color-wise, I'm going to go ahead and give the edge to my beer. On the nose, this is a left-hand s'more stout. I might have said forehand, sorry. On the nose, the left-hand stout gives you a little bit more kind of graham notes. They said that they used malt that gives off graham, which to me would be like European Munich malt. So it gives off a little bit more toasty, bready, more graham notes. There definitely is a little bit of vanilla there. And then there's something on the back end that just doesn't seem like it really fits. I don't know if it's like raisiny or like doughy or something, but there's something there on the back end that just doesn't necessarily feel like it fits. For the porter, lot of chocolate. There's 4 ounces of roasted cocoa nibs in this. So a lot of chocolate on the nose. There's a little bit of smokiness underneath of that that comes from the smoked malt. Just a hint of vanilla there. Graham's kind of missing. So to me, again, the porter hits a couple more notes that I'd be looking for in a s'mores beer than what the left hand does, but neither of them are necessarily what I would consider perfect on that front. On the palate and mouthfeel, stout's a little thinner. It's creamier because it is milk stout, so there is lactose in it. But it's a little bit thinner. Almost gives you some tea notes, which I think is from like the Munich malt. I don't get a lot of vanilla or marshmallow on it. Not a ton of chocolate. Again, graham is more of the dominating note to this. It is more crushable because it is a lighter beer. For mine, hold on. I had to rinse my mouth out the first time.
That's fair.
For mine, a little bit more roasted, a lot of dark chocolate notes. There's a little milk chocolate there that's offset by the vanilla. It is very chocolate dominant. In comparison, the vanilla and marshmallow doesn't really jump out of this one as much as I would like it to. It's a little bit more chocolate and smoked malt forward. There is just a hint of graham there. Again, these very much play opposite ends of the spectrum. Mouthfeel wise, it is a lot more full, a lot more like what I would want to drink on a cold night. So a little bit better mouthfeel on that front. I would say that this one's kind of close, but I'd still give the edge to mine more so on mouthfeel than anything. I think they're just very, very different as far as flavor goes. So, overall, this makes me feel very good about the beer that I brewed. While it's not perfect, again, I wish the graham notes came out a little bit more vanilla or marshmallow notes to it, so we'll tweak the recipe a tad next time. But the chocolate notes and the smoked malt really, really hit in this, as does the mouthfeel. I brewed it to be a campfire beer, and I definitely think it hits that. As far as the left hand goes, I've had their milk stouts before and generally tend to like them. This one kind of misses the mark for me a little bit, and it could be because it's going side by side with mine. Just kidding. But it misses the mark for me a little bit as I get more tea flavor off of it than I do sweet stout, and I'm not necessarily a fan of that.
Yeah, Left Hand's really expanded the milk stout series. They've truly expanded just going with the different variants. I'm not a particularly big fan of s'mores. I think it's a very difficult flavor to bring out because you have to be very particular. As the marshmallow and the graham cracker can be pretty difficult to bring out in the beer.
Oh yeah,
and it's easily to get too dominant in the chocolate front or just a malt heavy front, or in your case with Left Hand, get a different profile. Maybe changing the malt billing for them will help with that. Most people don't. You're not brewing these beers with actual marshmallow. You're generally using wheat or malt to bring out the marshmallow flavor to it. So I tend to stay away from s'more styles. I just don't think in general they're very, very hard to truly highlight the flavors that you would get if you're actually eating the s'more.
It's all right. You're going to be forced to try mine anyway, right?
I have no problem. Free beer is good beer to me, regardless, and I'll give you my honest thoughts as I always do. So,
and I appreciate that. No, I quite enjoy it. The second homebrew meeting in a row, by the way. My beer's been compared to 4 hands, so I appreciate that from my homebrew club. But yeah,
it's not a bad brewery to be compared to. They do pretty good stuff.
No,
over
and
there.
I actually do like this beer that I did. So I mean, I'm not just bullshitting. It's actually something I want to drink. Which I guess when you're stuck with 5 gallons of something, it better be something you want to drink.
You don't have a choice.
All right, the Matt Nagy swan song potentially, maybe, as it's being rumored. Bears and Lions. Dan, let's go ahead and kick us off.
All right, Bears are favored 3 points on the road at Detroit. 41.5 is the over/under. Look, Detroit, despite 0-8-1, as 6-4 against the spread this year. They've been underdogs in every single game. They've actually covered the last 3 of their 4 games here. All 3 games were over 3-point favorites, though. This situation is a little bit differently, right? You get a backup in Andy Dalton, who's more or less like a journeyman. You get Jared Goff back potentially. Otherwise, Tim Boyle. If Goff plays, I like the money line for Detroit. If Goff doesn't play, I just like to bet the under in the game total. I don't trust either quarterback situation. I don't trust either offense. And I think this is where you see Detroit get their first win, but I've been predicting that for the last 3 or 4 weeks, and of course it hasn't come to fruition.
Hey, eventually it's gonna be right.
It's if they're gonna get a win, this is probably the matchup they're gonna get it in. Well, Chicago is coming in pretty banged up. Detroit's starting to get a bit healthier, so who the fuck knows?
Yep.
Either way, this game is the reason why we're all gonna ignore our family members and still be pissed off while we're watching it.
You're gonna have an Andy Dalton versus Tim Boyle matchup in this one.
We're all Lion fans, so we can see Nagy
hopefully get fired on Thanksgiving.
Get fired
on Thanksgiving.
That's horrible. But I don't care.
Yeah, it's terrible. Look, Detroit. Again, Hawkinson's been hit or miss. You're not going to sit him because he is still one of the few tight ends that has any upside to them. DeAndre Swift, you're fine with this week. On the Bears side of this, we saw Darnell Mooney really take off with Andy Dalton. Allen Robinson is not trending good for tomorrow's game. So saw Darnell Mooney really take off with Andy Dalton under the helm. So, you look, if you need upside. Another thing to point out, by the way, is we're in the playoff stretch. If you're grouped with a bunch of people record-wise, play less for floor and more for upside, because points is normally going to be your first tiebreaker. So if you're grouped with a bunch of people record-wise, but behind them in points, and that could push you out of the playoff picture, make sure you're paying attention to that to know if you need to just be trying to put as many points on the board as possible, and that's a situation where Darnell Mooney could very well come into play.
He's been good this year. I'm not going to lie. 28% target share with both Andy Dalton and Justin Fields. Mooney, definitely has some things he needs to work on as a pure receiver standpoint. Actually, it's the lone bright spot in this offense outside of
target volume.
David Montgomery.
Yeah, I mean, go upwards of 100 yards as he did. He had 16 targets last week. Without Robinson, so he's been upwards of 5. Last game below 5 was all the way back in week 3. So, yeah, Mooney's been solid and has some upside. David Montgomery's the other name to know in this one. It's the Lions. They're not scaring anybody. The Bears will try to run the football. So, and then no, we're not going to talk about Cole Kmet because he just dudded again after getting 5 or 6 targets a week. So, this one for me, Lions side is Hawkinson and Swift. Bears side is Mooney and Montgomery. I really like Mooney against this defense with Andy Dalton getting that target volume. Could be a big upside week for him.
Yeah, it's the Bears' slowest pace of play team in the league. Lions are actually above average in terms of pass attempts and pace of play per game, or a pace of play. So under easily is the call here.
And that's the Bears' worst pace of play team in the league because they typically don't run more than 3 plays in a series. Because
they constantly go 3 and out. Yeah. And they can't sustain drives because of play calling. And you're trying to, teach a quarterback a system he shouldn't be playing in. So,
yep, and shouldn't be.
Either way,
wasted time.
Yep,
that's why you shouldn't have let them pick that quarterback.
Anyways, Raiders at the Cowboys. Cowboys 7.5-point favorites. Over under is at 51.5, the highest on the 3 Thanksgiving Day split. Raiders are coming off of 3 straight losses against the spread. Cowboys started off strong. They've kind of muddled that away, 1-2 in their last 3 games, but they're still 4-1 on the road or at home and 5-1 as true favorites. Look, the Cowboys are battling with injuries across the board. Zeke should play. Lamb shouldn't play, but there's a chance he probably will. I think Cooper is not going to be able to get back in time from being off of protocol, off of COVID. The Raiders team has been in disarray. They can't score points. They're giving up a shit ton, 32, 41, and 23, while not scoring more than 16 points in those final 3 or in these last 3 games. I like the Cowboys to cover as a good bounce back, even without Cooper and possibly Lamb. You get Cedric Wilson, who's been a bright spot. You get Gallup still returning from injury, is producing, and you get to probably see a little bit more of Tony Pollard as Zeke is still battling his. Like Dallas to cover. I don't like the over. I don't trust the Raiders to score enough points. I'm taking Dallas and the under.
All right. Lamb still needs to clear protocol. He did practice in full. Amari Cooper officially ruled out. So
okay. That's right.
Yes. So the Cowboys put up a dud against the Chiefs. The good news is that they get the Chiefs defense has kind of been trending upwards. The Raiders have absolutely not. So, Zeke's going to be fine in this one. Like you've mentioned earlier, stacking the Cowboys is never a bad option. CeeDee Lamb's going to get to go with no Amari Cooper. That's what you want to see. That's what you wanted to see last week before he ended up bouncing his head off the turf. And Dalton Schultz was easily preferred to Michael Gallup in that last week when they were both on the field. So looking at the Cowboys, it's Zeke, Dak, Pollard, Lamb, Schultz, right? It's a good matchup for them.
Yep.
On the Raiders side of the football, Cowboys are kind of sack and takeaway artists, but they will give up points and they will give up yards. They did a pretty good job against the resurgent Chiefs last week, but not good enough. So for the Raiders, you're looking. I like Derek Carr as a streaming option.
It's a bit rough.
Darren Waller was all right last week. I'm over here looking for Oakland, and obviously,
I think you're always going to play Waller because you just
play
expect
Waller. Yeah,
you just expect the upside is going to eventually be there again.
That's fair.
And Renfro, obviously.
And Jacobs got most of the receiving work for whatever reason over Kenyon Drake. So I have no idea why that was the case. Drake should be the better back this week. I think it's a week you can start Drake. Other than that, you don't like anything other than Hunter Renfro, who only saw 4 targets last week in a losing effort. So to the Bengals. So
that's rough.
I don't know if that was a matchup thing or what that was, but that's rough for a guy that you typically rely on for floors. So Hunter Renfro if you have to, but I would kind of avoid that a little bit. I'm going to vet that some on the Raiders side. Again, I got to vet some things because we don't prep. I want to take a quick look at what Cowboys have done against wide receivers here.
They're going to give up a lot of yards. They're very opportunistic. When you play with a high-powered offense that allows your defense to play with a little more looseness to it, they have a very strong front seven that creates a shit ton of pressure that allows them to play. It's going to
hurt. Yeah, and that pressure is going to hurt people that work downfield. Tyreek Hill was just an okay game last week against them. I don't really see anything that sticks out, though, as something that would make me love Hunter Renfro. Judy and Thielen were okay, but, yeah, there's not a lot there that makes me love Hunter Renfro. Just 2 touchdowns in the last 5 weeks given up to wide receivers for Dallas. So, yeah.
I mean, the defense has stepped up, especially Micah Parsons has been arguably the best defensive player in the league. Mm-hmm. He's been ridiculously good.
Yeah, he has been phenomenal. Backs against Vegas. They'll definitely give up points. No, backs against Dallas is what I wanted. We know Zeke. Sorry, fumbling around here for a minute. Backs against Vegas. Edwards-Helaire, 13 points. Gallman, nothing. Gordon, 15.5. Harris, 16. Absolutely will give up. They'll give up targets, I guess, to the backs, but they're really not giving up a ton in the receiving game. Just 11 receptions, 58 yards, only 357 yards to backs this season, just 1 receiving touchdown. So, yeah, Oakland, Vegas, I really don't want anything other than Waller looking at this, and Carr, potentially. The backs, I would avoid if you could.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
All right.
Raiders are a team I just want to stay away from in general. So,
Yep.
all right, final Thanksgiving game. Bills at the Saints. Bills are 6-point favorites on the road. A 45 even is the game total. The Saints are on a 3-game losing streak, but they've been 1-2 against the spread during that span. Bills are kind of in this back and fourth game. They're beating up on shitty teams. They're being outplayed by decent teams. Saints are reeling, but the defense is still very good. Buffalo is in this kind of who knows. Look, Jacksonville held them to 6 points, and then they gave up, and then they scored 45 against the Jets, but only scored 15 against the Colts. Saints still have an elite defense. Without Kamara, points aren't going to be scored. The problem here is there's so much going on that it's hard to really get an idea of where these teams are going to be in terms of being able to cover their spread here. I'll take Buffalo in 6 points. I would love it to be 5.5 or under. I feel more confident if I can get less than a touchdown for my spread. And maybe that'll be the case. Buffalo has struggled to score points against any good defense this year.
Yeah.
Game total of 45. I like the under. Saints can if Saints are going to hold Buffalo, they're going to do it in a way of keeping their offense on the field and keeping Josh Allen off of it, obviously. I'll take the game total of 45. I'll lean the 6 for Buffalo. I'm hoping it gets on the 5.5. Then I'll hammer that.
All right. For the Saints side of this, I don't like anything. We'll just leave it at that.
That's fair.
Kamara's not going to play. Buffalo has a good run defense. Ingram's been fine, over 100 scrimmage yards, hasn't found the end zone. He's also not really practicing, so you could end up with Tony Jones there. We'll have to see who's in, who's out for that game. I would just avoid all of that if I can. For the Bills, like you mentioned, the Saints have a good defense. For that reason, we saw Matt Breida actually look like the best back in the backfield. Use this as a measuring stick and avoid the Bills' backfield too if you can. You're not going to avoid Josh Allen, obviously. It's hard to sit Stephon Diggs, and Dawson Knox will sit to 6 targets, so there's fantasy value to be had for the Bills. But, Godwin actually had a huge game against New Orleans, so I like Diggs. Godwin and Diggs actually very comparable players. So like Diggs, but other than that, I would try to avoid this outside of Diggs and Dawson Knox. Because, again, Dawson Knox's target volume, when they couldn't get anything going to the wide receivers, they ran through Dawson Knox, and we know the Saints have good corners.
Yeah, and we expect the Saints to probably operate in that cover 2 shell, which is going to take away the deep threat, the deep ball for Allen and keep everything in front of them. Mm-hmm. Saints have a very good secondary.
Another area where Dawson Knox thrives. So,
yeah, he will win generally. He's generally a plus matchup in his, depending on, with his coverages, he's generally going to be considered the favorite to win his pass catching role. So, All right, Tennessee at the Patriots. Patriots are 6.5 point favorites at home. 44 even is the game total. New England is on a 6-game cover streak. This ranges from being a favorite in 4 straight games to being the underdog against the Chargers back in October at plus 3.5. The Patriots are playing fantastic football. They're hitting all the strides they needed to hit. Tennessee is coming in banged the fuck up. Julio obviously in IR, no Derrick Henry. The running game it's existent, but barely. AJ Brown is constantly in and out of the field because he can't get 100%. And while some of the backups have been good, Tannehill has struggled when he doesn't have his top playmakers with them, as what we just saw with the embarrassment to Houston. And it's the AFC. It's a fucking mess anyway. So who the fuck knows what happens? I'm going to follow the trends. I'm going to take the Patriots at 6.5. I'm going to actually go over. The Patriots can score against bad defenses. They put a 45 against Cleveland, who's an okay defense, and they've been able to get in the upper 25 plus range over the past few weeks, including that blow up against the Jets when they put up 54. We know Tennessee can get it going if Brown can play. So I'll take the Patriots 6.5 and the over and the over 44 points.
Yeah, the problem I have, even kind of with the over, but definitely for fantasy, you mentioned the Titans being a bad defense, but I mean, really, they're 28th in points allowed to running backs, so the rush defense is pretty good, and
it's a lot easy to throw on them, especially when they've been up a lot.
That holds over the last 5, and for the last 5 weeks to wide receivers, they've actually been a little bit better. Still not great. They're 12th, so they're middle of the pack there. The problem for fantasy with New England is that, well, the wide receivers might get a little bit against Tennessee. Who do you want, right? Because there's not really a lot of upside in that receiving core. Tennessee is great against the run, though. This is a game where if they game plan it, they could try to game plan it for Jacoby Myers. So, we've seen Kendrick Bourne and Nelson Aguilar get theirs as well. Jones will spread the ball out. Hunter Henry's a red zone monster. But if you're looking for a sneaky start or you need to plug in or you're like me and you got a lot of what-ifs around, Jacoby Myers is probably your best bet this week on the New England side of things. Mac Jones also could be in streamer territory given the fact that you do have to attack Tennessee through the air. The flip side of this, A.J. Brown's going to draw J.C. Jackson, and the Patriots are good against the run. I'm really scared of the Titans' offense this week.
Yeah, it's not good. It's you're avoiding. This isn't the fantasy matchup you want to target.
No,
in terms of streaming and upside. So
nope. And the only guy I like as a sneaky play is Jacoby Myers. I don't want to play with the Tennessee backs. Damian Harris is going to be in a tough matchup from the New England side, along with Ramondre Stevenson, and they were splitting work. This is not a matchup that I really want to play with a lot. Other than Jacoby Myers, A.J. Brown is A.J. Brown, but like I said, a really tough matchup for him.
Yeah, and he's not been healthy, so
right.
You're kind of hoping he sits and just continues to rehab himself back. All right, Jets at the Texans. Texans are 2.5-point favorites at home. 44.5 is the game total. Zach Wilson is going to get to start. He was already expected to start before the Mike White and Flacco news as being close contact for COVID came out. Look, it's been. This is a game where I'm going to relatively just ignore it. Jets haven't covered a game since Cincinnati back in October. Texans, while have been better and obviously have that impressive win against the Titans last week. If I have to bet this game, I will take Houston. I'll bet the spread. I'll get the little better odds. And then I'm probably just going to avoid the game total. Both defenses aren't very good. Both offenses, as we know, aren't very good. And we'll see what Zach Wilson looks like returning from injury. Hopefully, what Elijah Moore has been able to put together continues to still be there. And hopefully Zach Wilson doesn't set this offense backwards if you've started to see a little improvement.
Yeah, and I'm going to go ahead and go off of the fact that the Jets have just figured out how to scheme and how to use certain players too. So, for the Jets, you're going to have no Michael Carter. He is officially out this week. So Ty Johnson is a fine plug-in against a bad Houston defense. He should get most of the run work. On the other side, like you mentioned, Elijah Moore has been a monster. So completely okay with Elijah Moore. Don't want Jamison Crowder. Don't want Corey Davis in this one necessarily. Corey Davis is banged up. On the flip side of this for Houston, look, we saw Tyrod Taylor really turn it on last week, and it's not any worse of a defensive matchup this week. So I think you can be okay with Tyrod Taylor as a streamer this week, or if you've got to start him in a 2-quarterback league. So, like I said last week, just 107 yards through the air, but he did have 2 rushing touchdowns. So he gave you an okay week, 28 yards on the ground. Not huge, but definitely serviceable. Rex Burkhead saw 18 attempts. David Johnson just 13, but was involved in the receiving game. Again, Jets are not tough in any facet of the game. So if you've got, for example, the Bills backs, I would actually, the Texans might be a better version of what the Bills have in the running game. this week.
It's sad.
And it's sad, but that's where we're at. If I tell you you shouldn't start an entire team's worth of backs, we got to fill them out someplace. The flip side of that, Brandon Cooks did not see a ton of target volume last week. Didn't have to, as they were up for the majority of the game. Don't know how this game's going to go. I would stay away from Houston pass catchers if I could. But like I said, the flip side of that is that they might be able to get a little bit more going in the running game than they have in weeks past. And Burkhead and Johnson were both used quite a bit. Zach Wilson, we'll get to see what he can do against a bad defense. Hopefully it's not 4 interceptions.
Hopefully.
But Elijah Moore and Ty Johnson on the Jets side of this with no Michael Carter.
Love it.
Back to you.
All right. Philadelphia at New York. Eagles are 3.5-point favorites on the road. 46 even is the game total. Philadelphia's kind of been getting it going. The offense is clicking. Hurst is playing the best football he's played in the pros in his short career. Eagles are 2-0 as favorites. They're 4-2 on the road this year against the spread. Giants have been middle of the road, 2-2 as home underdogs. Like I like what Philadelphia is putting together. New York is spiraling backwards. Philly's defense, their offense is clicking. I'll take Philly, and I'll be given 3.5. And I'm staying away from the game total. I don't trust the Giants to be able to put up enough points.
We somehow
They've been all over the place, right?
We somehow missed the fact that Jason Garrett got fired too in the open.
Jason Garrett, well, he's very, very unforgettable as a coach and as an OC. So I don't disagree with us forgetting that Jason Garrett got fired.
Jason Garrett got fired. So Giants are going to be under new OC, so we'll have to see if that adjusts anything majorly. Saquon Barkley's back. Saquon Barkley was involved in the receiving game. Giants pass catching room has been a total infirmary, so I don't even know what to recommend there because we don't know who's starting. Tune in on Sunday because we have no idea who's going to be healthy. I know that Kenny Golladay hasn't re-aggravated anything. He had just 2 targets. You know,
I guess to be Golladay, Slayton. I think Shepard didn't play. Tony is often banged up. So
yep. So really, Barkley's the only thing I even kind of want in this game from that side of it. Nothing else. On the Philadelphia side of this, you're right. The offense has gotten going. Jalen Hurts has been very good here lately. They've leaned on the running game more and found a little bit more balance. Weird how that works when you end up with a little bit more balance. We saw 26 carries out of them between Jordan Howard and Miles Sanders. Jordan Howard going to be out this week. It's a great week to start Miles Sanders against the Giants. Great week to start Miles Sanders.
Great week.
With no Jordan Howard. So Boston Scott should mix in a little bit behind him, but I don't really want to play with that. On the target volume side of things, we saw Dallas Goedert heavily involved. You're starting him every week because he's a tight end. Devonta Smith has emerged as a clear 1 here in a plus matchup.
Eagles have put together over the last 4 games, 2 40-point games, 1 30-point game. Their lowest point total is 24. I feel a lot more comfortable in the over if the Giants.
And that was against the Saints too. So
and they put 40 points against the Saints.
Not a slouch defense. So
yeah, they've greatly improved.
Yes.
All right, Bucks at the Colts. Bucks are 3-point favorites on the road. 52.5 is the game total. Look, both teams are playing very well. Bucks haven't really covered much. They've been pretty much even all year. They're 0-5 as away team favorites. 0-5. Colts are surging. They're 5-2 as underdogs this year, as one would expect when the team has been disrespected for most of the season. They don't cover against the teams they should beat, but they cover as dogs. I actually like the Colts to win this game. So if you don't take the money line at plus 138, you can take the spread. You can give yourself 3 points to spare. I like the game total. Bucks defense is massively banged up. The Colts in this running game has opened up everything, and JT has just been an absolute fucking monster lately. I like the Colts, and I like the over. The Bucks get behind. We know Brady can do Brady things. The only hope is that the Colts don't come out flat. And while they're playing this year, and maybe it's just an AFC thing, there's always that concern, but I like the Colts to cover +3, and I like the over 52.5.
Yeah, you mentioned the Bucs defense being a little bit banged up, but the one thing that they've been good against all year is the run. So you got to wonder what that's going to do to Philly's offense. But that doesn't scare you from Jonathan Taylor because Jonathan Taylor is the best back in the game right now. And Michael Pittman's been one of the most consistent receivers in the game. So you're completely on board with those guys. Carson Wentz is a guy who might fade a little bit this week, but don't have to. On the Buccaneers side of the football, I mean, what else is there to say? The Colts will give up points, and while the Bills couldn't muster up anything against them, the Bucs are a much, much more difficult offense. Godwin, Evans, Fournette, Ronald Jones, we saw start to get involved. I would still wait on that one a little bit. But yeah, Bucs are pretty chalk.
Bucs are always chalk. Colts. The
Chargers?
Falcons at the Jaguars. The Falcons are 2.5-point favorites on the road. 46.5 is the game total. I'm gonna make this really easy. Just ignore this game. Don't bet it. Don't look at it. Just ignore it. Pretend like it doesn't even exist. Both teams aren't great against the spread. Both teams never get favored, so it's hard to even trust Atlanta with what we have for information there. Both defenses suck, though both have been able to be productive to some points this year. I'm just ignoring this game and not looking at it as a betting standpoint. So don't play it. There's no like even lean to it. Just don't play it.
There's one piece of advice I can give you. It's ignore this game.
Ignore this game. Just pretend like it doesn't even exist.
Yeah, pretend like this game doesn't even exist. Outside of James Robinson and Cordero Patterson, if you play, ignore this game and pretend like it doesn't exist. I'm being completely serious.
And probably Pitts too, but
in Pitts, yeah,
in Pitts because tight ends.
Other than the people that you're going to start regardless, ignore this game.
Yeah, all right. Panthers at the Dolphins. Panthers are 2-point favorites on the road. A 42 even is the game total. Miami has covered 4 straight games, including 2 games as underdogs. And they are 1-2 as home dogs this year, but they're on a 4-game cover streak. Carolina's whole Cam Newton return has been spoiled with what Washington just did to them.
I mean, Washington edged them out. Cam was.
They did. Cam played great. No, we're gonna, we'll see what type of hangover comes from that. I think the game total is a trap. You want to bet the over, right? You trust both offenses to put up just enough points. The Dolphins have scored just enough points to feel confident that they can push this game over at 24, 22, and 17. But the Panthers defense is also very good. Banged up, yes, but when healthy, they're very good. And they're getting to that point. So I'm going to take Miami +2. I'll take the home team and I'll take the streak that they're on. And then I will just ignore the game total. It's not play it. It's too much to overcome.
Fair enough. On the other side of this game for Miami, Tua's been playing well. Waddle is getting a ton of target volume. I don't know how you back off of either of them right now, despite a Panthers defense that has been slightly above average this year. On the flip side of that, Myles Gaskin is very on again, off again. I would recommend in this game you just assume he's going to be off again. Panthers don't give up a whole lot on the ground. When they have, it's been to bigger backs. With Myles Gaskin is not. So I would try to avoid doing anything with Myles Gaskin this week. But again, you're okay running out Jalen Waddle, Mike Gesicki, Tua Tagovailoa. On the other side of this, Cam Newton, like I said, did have a solid return. He is a guy that I would absolutely look at as a potential streaming option this week. The rushing floor is absolutely still there. 10 carries, 40 yards, and a touchdown. So 10 points from the rushing side of things to go along with 2 passing touchdowns. So he had a very solid day. I'd expect that to continue a little bit more. DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson pretty well split targets, but DJ Moore was more productive, more efficient with his. Did get the touchdown in this one. Robbie Anderson's still a watch. DJ Moore is still kind of a cautious start, although he's had a down year, especially over the last few weeks.
Yeah, it's just Again, not surprising, just given
it's an
what the
okay
Panthers have
matchup.
put out there, but it is what it is. We know more what Moore's upside is, and as we're going through bye week, sometimes you're just gonna have to play through that.
Yeah, McCaffrey's healthy, so you start him.
No, of course. Steelers at the Bengals. Bengals are 4.5-point favorites at home. 45 even is the game total. Pittsburgh coming off of back-to-back losses. The Bengals are trying to still figure out where their season lies in. Right, being able to beat the Raiders off of their 0-2 loss here. I like Cincinnati at home. I think Pittsburgh's a fraudulent team. The biggest thing here is that can Cincinnati prevail through that? Last time the Bengals played against the Steelers at Pittsburgh, they covered that game, beat them by 14. I like the Bengals to cover 4.5 game total. I will lean the over, but probably just bet the spread.
All right, other side of this, the Steelers did show something on Sunday night, and that's that they can't keep up in the passing game if they need to. I thought that was a very entertaining game. They definitely kept up with the Chargers, though, and this is a game that I think could go a lot of the same way. We saw Eric Ebron hurt Pat Freiermuth's usage a little bit, so I would definitely keep an eye on that with Freiermuth. Maybe look at
Ebron's out.
Ebron's out again.
Yeah, he's on. I think he might be done for the year. It's a multi-week. It sounds like so.
Okay, because he was back last week, and that did get into Freiermuth's snap count. Couple looks down by the goal line, though. They really like to use him there. Very much Heath Miller style. Okay with that. Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, both have been healthy. Claypool, they're still having problems connecting with him downfield. He does still have upside, but you definitely can't bet on that. Deontay Johnson, the much more consistently used target. You're starting Johnson and Harris. The Bengals side of this, Steelers have been banged up on defense. They had no Joe Hayden last week, no TJ Watt. So they've been very, very much banged up. They had problems getting pressure on Justin Herbert, and the Chargers really took advantage of that. Expect the Bengals to be able to do the same thing. I don't know. I'm going to check real quick. I don't know if Hayden or Watt or Fitzpatrick are expected to be back. They were all out, so I'm going to check on those three real quick because that's going to make a big difference here. TJ Watt, no news since the hip injury. So no news this week on TJ Watt. So no news is probably not good news there. Okay, I'm not getting much on them. I'm actually gonna have to go to Google.
It might be something we have to come back to on Sunday too. We'll get a little more information from them.
It may be. TJ Watt's running limited right now, so yep, we won't know for sure on him. Joe Hayden is not practicing, so he's probably not going to play. So that's going to open it up a bit for both wide receivers, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. And Fitzpatrick. No word on him, it looks like. So, yeah, revisit us on Sunday to see about the Steelers' defensive situation. Looks like there will be no Joe Hayden. Fitzpatrick and Watt might be back. Have to keep an eye on that one to see who's playing or who's not playing. As of right now, you're full go with Bengals.
Yeah.
So if you're trying
Watt's a bigger impact for this. Like if you can disrupt Burrow, that's going to disrupt the entire offense. So I'm really watching for Watt in this.
Yeah. You're full go Bengals right now, though, if you're trying to decide between them and a Thursday person.
Yeah, no, I am completely on board with that. All right, Chargers at the Broncos. Chargers are 2.5-point favorites on the road. 47.5 is the game total. Both teams have sucked this year against the spread. The Chargers have covered only one game in their previous 5. Broncos have only covered 2 games in their previous 7. I'll take the Chargers and the favorite, though. When they've covered games, it's generally been in this 2.5, 3-point range. It's where they feel comfortable. They're like the Vikings. They tend to get up and they keep the games close. I think the Chargers are a better team overall, and we may start to see them spread away from this. Denver has a lot of good pieces in place. they've have found their ways to be disappointed in both. I like the Chargers to cover on the road at 2.5, and I like this game to go over. The Chargers defense just giving up a bunch of yards and points. Well, Denver is a better team defensively. You can't ignore how good this Chargers offense is, especially with Herbert is starting to kind of refine himself and get himself back to where he played in that dominant part towards last season. So Chargers to cover 2.5 and the game to go over.
We did see the Chargers end up in some trouble on defense. However, Cortland Sutton has only gotten 5 targets over the last 2 weeks. Did have a tough matchup against Slay, but he's not what he used to be. Slay is not what he used to be. So Sutton, I'm a little iffy on. Noah Fant on the flip side, definitely was getting target volume. Jerry Jeudy out targeting Cortland Sutton a bit. So Judy's more of a guy that's in the wide receiver 2 to 3 range. I don't love the upside, but it is a plus matchup. So, I could completely be on board with Jeudy. I'd probably steer away from Sutton for right now, although, again, plus matchup. Asante Samuel Jr. was banged up. I don't know what his status is for this weekend, so tune back in on Sunday for that one. He is actually functioning as the Chargers' top corner at the moment, so that'll make a big difference on whether we expect Sutton or not. And then for the Broncos, we know that Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon are pretty well splitting touches. Did not see a lot out of Najee Harris in that Steelers game as that game went shootout really, really quick. Chargers do have a pretty decent front seven. So Gordon, again, is the guy that's getting most of the red zone work and most of the pass catching work. So I'd absolutely lean Gordon over Williams in this particular game. Chargers have not given up a 100-yard rusher since Clyde Edwards-Helaire all the way back in week 3. So, Nick Chubb in week 5. Pardon me. But, it's also a game where game script could dictate a little bit more Melvin Gordon than anything. On the other side of this, Denver does have a solid defense, but the Chargers are the Chargers. You're okay with Herbert. You're golden with Eckler. I would probably steer clear of Mike Williams. Keenan Allen's the other guy that you want to play. Parham is very touchdown dependent.
Vikings at the 49ers. Niners are 3-point favorites at home. 49 even is the game total. Both teams are riding hot right now. Minnesota has covered 4 of the last 5 games. San Francisco has covered their last 4. But Minnesota is 3-0 as away underdogs, and the Niners are 0-4 as home favorites. Now, a lot of that can change with how good their team is surging. I like Minnesota +3. This is going to be a very, very close matchup. We know what Minnesota's motto's been. Get up double-digit points, give up the lead, and we watch Kirk Cousins battle them back, and either they win or they don't, effectively. As for the game total-wise, I like the over. The Vikings defense can't stop giving up points, and the Niners offense has been very, very good of recently as their top playmakers are getting healthy. We know what Minnesota's offense can produce. I'm surprised this game is under 50 points. Just feels like a gift. Minnesota to cover +3 and the game to go over is one of my favorite plays of the week.
Play them all.
That's a great way.
Play them all is basically where I'm at on that game. Ayuk's been the leading target getter. We know Debo's going to be involved. Pay attention to Elijah Mitchell and whether he'll be back or not. I don't expect Everson Griffin for the Vikings. Thoughts with him as he once again is struggling with mental health.
Yes.
So that pass rush is going to be neutered. So good Jimmy G week. Probably going to have to push the pace a little bit. Don't know that they're going to be able to run the football 40 times against the Vikings, but they might try. And for the Vikings, you're chalked. Let's start them all game. It's going to be a fun one.
Yep, I agree. Another potentially, hopefully, fun game. Rams at the Packers. Rams 1-point favorites on the road. 47 even is the game total. Green Bay has been dominant this year. I guess the spread at 9-2. And they were right in that 9-game winning streak until they caught Minnesota as they were 1-point dogs. Rodgers is banged up. He's going to play.
Yeah.
And we know how good he is. He doesn't need to have a functioning toe for him to carve up a defense. And the Rams have kind of been back and forth all year. Their offense is sputtering. Just 26 total points over the past 2 games. Green Bay has had an elite defense. It's what's been carrying this team, in my opinion. Minnesota found ways to expose them. Hopefully the Rams get back to where they've been. But again, the offense has not been what it was as of recently. I like Green Bay to cover at home. I would much rather just take Green Bay in the money line. This is probably the most important game for them because this is going to dictate a lot of playoff seedings. And if they lose this game and Minnesota finds a way to beat San Francisco, then it creates a whole nother conversation. I like this game to go over. I expect this game to be close, and both offenses have no issues scoring quickly. And I'm betting that the Rams will start to find their groove in what is one of the most important games this year for them.
Yeah, the Rams are going to have to find their groove in this one. They kind of gave 2 duds going into the bye week, kind of lackluster performances. So going to be really interesting to see what they find. They have otherworldly players at all levels of that defense, but for some reason are still pretty vulnerable on defense as well, particularly to the run. Makes me really like A.J. Dillon this week. We'll keep an eye on Aaron Jones' status. And if he actually ends up playing in this game or not. For the Rams, Odell Beckham will has had the bye week, should be pretty up to speed, fill into the Robert Woods role. So Beckham, Kupp, Henderson. Look, you're going to start them all, but if they come out not better than they looked before the bye week, we're really going to have to start considering being a little bit more careful with them.
Yep, I agree.
On the Packers side of the football, it's Adams, A.J. Dillon right now. If Aaron Jones shows up, we'll reassess. Devontae Adams, you're not getting cute. The other thing you can't get cute with actually is Valdez-Scantling. He has been the second leading target getter on this team. They are targeting him downfield. He is another one of those boom bust type of guys, though, to where, well, the volume's there, the efficiency hasn't necessarily been there. If he gets a hold of one, it's going to make or break his day. And again, that falls into the, do I start a floor guy or an upside guy? If I'm one of these fringe playoff teams that could end up with the same record as 4 other teams and I need to board some points.
Yeah, I'm pretty much playing MVS. Now, I'm not confident, but if I need an upside play.
No, because it could be a total dud. But if you
it could be a massively total dud. He's not going to get Ramsey. Ramsey should be on Adams for the majority of that game.
Yep.
And Rodgers is going to have to look elsewhere. Otherwise, Ramsey's going to pick them apart. So, all right, 2 games left. Browns at the Ravens. Ravens are 3.5-point favorites at home. 45.5 is the game total. Lamar Jackson should be back. Baker is always a we'll see, but you're probably not going to play him in fantasy anyway, so it doesn't matter. They just play on Sunday night. What does matter, though, is Baltimore is not in that touchdown plus favorite spot, which they've struggled to cover this year. They're in that comfortable 3.5. Cleveland's offense has been bad. 13 points, 7 points, 16 points, 10 points, 17 points, 14. They haven't put up a double digit. They haven't put up 20 plus points outside of Cincinnati way back in the beginning of November. They haven't put up a 20 plus point week since October. This offense is struggling. Offense can't get healthy. No, they're supposed to get Kareem Hunt back. He's been designated off IR, so we'll see if he's returning this week. I like Baltimore to cover their 3.5. Lamar Jackson should be back. The game total is, I'll probably lean under. I don't trust the Browns offense, but Baltimore's defense has been very, very forgiving. So there might be a way for the Browns to start scoring points, but Baker is not only battling his shoulder problem, he's got a hip problem. He's got foot problems. The Browns have completely fucked up this situation. They've gone the exact opposite of what the Cardinals have been doing with Kyler Murray, and you're going to see them falter because of that. So, like the Ravens to cover 3.5, and I will lean the under in the game total.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot else to say there, right? The Browns have been giving up a little bit in the receiving game. Rashad Bateman and Marquise Brown is Baltimore has leaned a little bit more pass happy, especially with Lamar Jackson, and the lack of a running game. So I'm okay with both Ravens wide receivers as well as obviously Mandrews are going to play. On the flip side of this, the Browns, you don't want almost anybody. While they've been forgiving, We'll see what happens with Kareem Hunt. You're going to play Nick Chubb, but stay away from the pass catchers. Don't mess with Baker. Browns are struggling to score points, and that's tough. And it's even going to be tough to like Kareem Hunt, even if he is activated.
Yeah. Yep.
Coming off of an injury, is he going to go back straight into his regular volume? And his regular volume relied a lot on offensive efficiency. So Jarvis Landry has, I believe, been
Not
okay,
practiced this week.
but he's not practicing. So, yeah.
The Browns are going in the opposite direction from this point, and it's something you hate to see. So, final game. Seahawks at the football team. Football team is favored by 1 point at home. 46.5 is the game total. Washington has been terrible against the spread this year. They're 3-7 and over their last 10 games. They're 0-2 as home favorites. Seattle is dead even at 5-5 over their 5-5 over their last 10, even as road dogs. This is basically a pick'em game with Washington being 1 point favorites. Seattle gets the better money line, obviously, as the 1 point dogs. I don't care. Again, just like what we talked about with the Falcons and Jaguars, I don't trust either team. They've both been all over the place and trying to predict what they'll do. I may just bet. I'm probably just going to take the under, right? Both defenses have been okay this year. Bad at times. They've looked improved in recent weeks. Seattle has given up 23-17 and then 31 to Jacksonville, but that was obviously without Russell Wilson back. The offense can't score points. Just ignore the game total or just ignore the spread and just bet the game total. Just take the under at 46.5. It feels a bit forgiving.
Yeah, Russell Wilson's really struggled since he got back, and that has not gone well for the pass catchers either. I don't know what's wrong there, but it's not pretty with the Seahawks. It's really not. Alex Carson's on IR. Alex Collins, we'll see if he plays. He should. He played last week. So
yeah.
Alex Collins will play, but how good is that going to be? Washington beat up on the front end of that, so you might be okay with a spot start for Collins if you absolutely need it. Washington's giving up yards, so this could be a little get right for DK Metcalf, who's had a couple of down weeks in a row. Lockett just 5 targets, but really had the big game last week against Arizona. You're going to look for a little bit more volume there. That's the thing that I struggle with as they've been from behind, and really the receivers haven't gotten a ton of volume. Metcalf's had a hard time getting it going. This should be a get-right game for Seattle, though, and I'm going to tag this as a get-right game and say that you're okay with both Lockett and Metcalf. But again, if this doesn't get better, we're really going to have to start thinking about it, kind of like with the Rams. This is an offense that's loaded with firepower, but you can't, at this stage in the year, take multiple duds multiple times in a row and not think about, do I maybe have a better, safer option here? On the flip side of it, Terry McLaurin's been very, very good for Washington. Antonio Gibson should be fine. You have been able to run against Seattle. James Conner had a perfectly okay week, including in the receiving game, actually. So, yeah. Washington's chalk, which is Gibson and McLaurin for them, by the way. That's what chalk is. Logan Thomas may be activated as well, by the way, so keep an eye on that one, because if he ends up back, they're going to use their tight ends. So he's in for 6-7 targets if he returns.
That's it.
That's all we got.
All we got.
We'll be back on Sunday morning. Dan's going to go drink. I'm going to go drink. Enjoy your holiday weekend, everyone. What are we thankful for? Cheesy. We're thankful for the people to show up and listen to the show and have allowed us to do this for the last 5 years without just talking to ourselves. So thank you so much, everyone. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I'll be rebuilding a computer next year. It's old. It's overheating. In the meantime, I'm off to Amazon to buy some thermal paste and a new heatsink.
And I'm going to go eat and drink.
I'm also going to eat and drink while I'm doing that.
See you guys later.